Hi friends, and welcome to the channel. I'm Olivia, and if you've never seen my face before, I am a fragrance enthusiast, reviewer, whatever you'd like to call me. And if you have seen my face before, hello my darling. I'm so happy to have you here today because I'm very excited for today's video because I had an idea this morning and decided to film this on a whim because I really wanted to talk about masculine fragrances and their feminine counterparts. And I just want to disclaim that I don't really subscribe to the whole masculine versus feminine fragrance debate. I think you wear whatever you want to wear. I've said this time and time again on this channel that my husband, who's a guy, literally wears Burberry Her, which is not traditionally masculine. So you wear whatever you want. But I thought it would be interesting to show perfumes that are similar, but are more masculine and more feminine. So if you're into that sort of thing, make sure that you stay tuned and watch the rest of the video. And I'd just like to take a moment to invite you to subscribe if you already haven't. I talk about perfume. That's it, nothing more, just perfume. So if you're into perfumes, this is the place to be. And without further ado, let's get into the perfume duos. The first duo that I'd like to talk about today is Jusbox, Siren and Sailors, and Initio Oud For Greatness. Starting off with Siren and Sailors, this is by Jusbox, and this is an incredibly unique take on a fruity floral because you've got some very interesting notes in here. So in the beginning, you get this juicy peach. And you get a really velvety rose, but it's rounded off and made a little bit dark and sexy with some boozy notes. So you've got rum, you've got whiskey. That gives this a very nuanced, intoxicating dry down. So this is a little bit more complex. So if you're a little bit tired of the regular fruity florals and you want to try something that is a little bit more interesting, a little bit more daring, this is on our feminine side. It has a really intoxicating, musky, vanillic suede dry down that doesn't give you an intense leathery scent, but is a very velvety, soft suede. So if you don't like leathery scents, this is not going to be overpowering. So let's talk about the more masculine counterpart. So on the flip side, we have Initio's Oud For Greatness. Now this is a very spicy, slightly leathery oud fragrance. This is your traditionally very masculine fragrance, but I love to wear this one, and I actually adore to layer the two because a bit of sweetness from that peach and rose in Siren and Sailors complements this really well. They both share a patchouli musk dry down, and although this doesn't have leather listed in the notes, this oud is a slightly animalic oud that lends itself to a leathery type component. So this is the masculine counterpart. So if you like something spicy, woody, strong, and masculine, go with this. If you like something more feminine, go with Siren and Sailors. And if you're daring, like me, you put them both together and it is a winning combination. So the next combination that actually inspired this is a fragrance that I just picked up yesterday, and this is from Chris Collins, and this is called Citrus Grandis. And as I was smelling this yesterday, as I said, I just purchased it yesterday, I had something a little bit sweeter on underneath, and it reminded me a lot of Killian's Love Don't Be Shy. So let's talk about these. If you guys have never tried Chris Collins' fragrance before, he is an absolutely talented perfumer, and he just got into Lucky Scent. And so I went to the event yesterday. He was there, he's such a sweetheart, and I picked this one up, and he was explaining to me that he had a bit of a hesitance to make a citrus fragrance because they simply do not last long enough. And I've been wearing this today since 9 a.m. and it is now 6:30 and I can still smell it on. So he did a good job making a lasting power out of a very, very difficult fragrance to make last. So as one would imagine by the name, this is a very citrus forward fragrance. So the citruses being yuzu and pomelo. You also have a verbena in here, and that lends itself to having a slightly green, almost neroli-like scent without the sharpness of an actual neroli. This is sweetened up a little bit with black currant, but it is not overly sweet. This is definitely more of an aromatic slightly green citrus fragrance. And in the dry down, it's very interesting because it's got some richer notes. It's got incense, it's got elemi resin, it's got cedar wood. So this is not just a flat type of citrus fragrance. This is a nuanced, multifaceted fragrance. And this one leans a little bit more on the masculine side, but I would say that this really is perfectly unisex. It's just when we're talking about feminine fragrances, typically you think very sweet. So if you like something that is fresh and clean, very, very citrus forward, but has a little bit of nuance to it, it's a little bit more interesting than your run-of-the-mill citrus fragrance, I would definitely try Citrus Grandis by Chris Collins. And I think a fantastic feminine counterpart would be Love Don't Be Shy by Killian. Now this is a bergamot forward fragrance in the beginning. You get quite a bit of citrus, but in contrast, this has neroli and a heavy dose of orange blossom. So this has quite a bit of floral, but it is very, very sweet, very powdery. Almost think of a marshmallow or almost, you know, the heart-shaped candies that you get on Valentine's Day? It kind of smells like this. This has a vanillic, sugary, musky dry down. And although this is a little bit sweet for my taste, I really enjoy using this as a layering tool to sweeten up fragrances that don't have much sweetness. So the combination of this and the Chris Collins fragrance is absolutely incredible. I tried it on my arm, I have it right now, and it is 10 out of 10. Our next duo is Gladiator by Soradora and You or Someone Like You by ELDO. Starting with the more feminine of the two. And this one, I will say, leans quite unisex, but out of the two, this one is definitely a bit more unisex, slightly more feminine than Gladiator. This is a great scent for incredibly hot days because it's very refreshing. You have the note of mint that is supported with some citruses, and you have a very clean, musky dry down. There's not any sweetness in this. It does lean a little bit green, but it feels photorealistic mint. And it is just a cooling, light, refreshing fragrance that I have decent longevity with. Now that's remained to be seen. I've seen some reviews where people say that this doesn't last for them. I don't agree. I believe that I got around 5 hours, which isn't terribly long, but for a lighter musky mint fragrance, I say that that's pretty good. So let's talk about the more masculine counterpart. Gladiator by Soradora is very similar in the way that it is mint, it is citrus, a lot heavier on the citrus, but then you have some notes that are a little bit more classic masculine fragrances like a strong cedar wood and a geranium and a coumarin that give a lot of structure to this fragrance. Now I know that there are a lot of people that say that this smells like Creed Aventus, and I feel like it is much more nuanced than that, and you get that additional note of mint that gives it a nice refreshing feel. This has green apple, so it has a little bit of sweetness while also having a lot of depth. This is one of those fragrances that really takes you from day to night very seamlessly. This is a good everyday fragrance that you could wear day or night, any occasion, and it will really be effective. So this is more masculine version, and You or Someone Like You is the more feminine version. Next combination is Rose 31 by Le Labo and Camel Oud by Soradora once again. Starting with the more feminine of the two is Rose 31 by Le Labo. Now this is a very interesting rose fragrance because it is quite spicy. It has the note of cumin, which can read a little bit like body odor to some people, but when it warms up on your skin, it really does something magical. There is something very intoxicating about that note when done well. And it also has the note of oud in the base, but this is not an animalic oud by any means. This is a green, spicy rose with a little bit of a woody kick. The rose in this, to my nose, does not lean vintage, but rather a bit more natural smelling. I don't find it to be thick or waxy. I find it to be like a fresh cut stem along with some spices, a little bit of woodiness, and a little bit of a musky dry down. Sharing very similar notes is Camel Oud by Soradora. So this also has cumin. this also has rose, and this also has oud. But what makes this a slight bit more masculine fragrance is that it has a very resinous quality. It also has pink pepper that amps up the spiciness. And it has a very regal cardamom saffron combination that makes this a really, really unique, interesting scent. Now this smells like all of the spices in your cabinet. And it almost smells like the cabinet itself. You've got the wood, a dry aged wood. You've got the resin that holds it together. You've got the spice rack that is rich and fragrant. And so if you are not into spicy fragrances, and I don't mean just in the way of a burning sensation, like spicy, but actual spices that you would use to flavor food. This is just a very, very unique scent, and these layer so nicely together. So if you want a little bit more of a rose hit, add a little bit more of this, and if you want an extra hit of spicy resinous quality, these two together, they're incredible. The next combination is No Shade for Nomade by Alexandria Fragrance, and this is a dupe of Ombre Nomade by Louis Vuitton, and the more feminine version is La Capitale by Xerjoff. La Capitale by Xerjoff is a very interesting fragrance because in the beginning, you get this sticky sweet peach strawberry combination. It's almost caramelized. But then it flips and it does a total 180, and this strong, smooth, high quality leather scent comes through. The leather never becomes sharp or obnoxious because it's smoothed over with a benzoin and an amber that give it this warmth, and a vanilla that also warms it up, but it kind of cuts through the sticky sweetness that you get in the beginnings. So this is a very unique but slightly challenging fragrance. If you judge it from the first few sniffs, you're gonna think that this is a sticky, sweet, fruity fragrance, and then that leather starts to set in and it totally changes. It's very, very interesting. So let's talk about the masculine counterpart. So this is No Shade for Nomade by Alexandria Fragrances, and like I said, this is a dupe of Ombre Nomade by Louis Vuitton. And the original is incredibly expensive. And although I wouldn't put this in the category of a cheap dupe, it is definitely very high quality, very long lasting, and absolutely a spot on dupe. So if you like that fragrance, but it's not necessarily in your budget, this is around the $100 range. The packaging is very, very luxe, so I really, really recommend this house for dupes. This is a very dark, mysterious fragrance because you have a strong note of oud that is made a little bit smoky with incense, and you have a rose that is very dark and brooding. You do get a little hint of sweetness from a note of raspberry, but it is not to the nose a very sweet fragrance by any means. This is a woody, dark, rich, smoky, masculine fragrance that has a little bit of a leathery touch to it. It smells very regal and expensive because of that saffron, and it also has some ambery touches. So if you want to combine these two, be a little bit cautious as to how much of this one you spray because it can tend to overpower La Capitale a little bit because this is quite a heavier scent profile. But this on its own is phenomenal. And this actually mixes incredibly well with the first one that I talked about, Siren and Sailors. So it's a little bonus duo for you. Next combo that I'd like to talk about is Orientica's Amber Rouge, which is a perfect spot-on dupe for MFK's Baccarat Rouge. Very, very infamous here online. I'm sure you've heard all about it, but this is just as good and much more affordable. And we have Burberry Her Elixir. So let's start off with Amber Rouge by Orientica. This one is going to serve as our more masculine, but this is, again, a very unisex fragrance. If anything, some people find this slightly feminine, but I don't think anything in here reads as masculine nor feminine because this is an airy saffron fragrance that has a load of cedarwood in the base. It's got an ambergris that gives it a little bit of a salty, slightly animalic touch, and some people say that this smells a little bit medicinal, but there is something very, very attractive about this fragrance. If you haven't smelled saffron, I really urge you to try to smell it, although it is very expensive. It has a very unique scent, So to me, this reads as very airy and very woody, and it has an absolutely incredible scent trail. The bubble that this creates around you is phenomenal. It is humongous, and it lasts for a really long time. And if anything, I feel like this outperforms the original Baccarat Rouge. So let's talk about the more feminine version. So for the more feminine version, we have Burberry Her Elixir. Now the original Burberry Her bears a little bit more resemblance to Baccarat Rouge or Amber Rouge, whichever one is in your budget. This one is a little bit more of a creamy version. So this is almost like a strawberry creamy milkshake with a really soft, clean, musky dry down. This is a beautiful fragrance, and the performance is really, really good on this. Like I said, my husband wears the original of this fragrance, and I can smell it on him after he's come home from work. I think the performance for a designer fragrance is really, really good. So if you like something that's airy, sweet, creamy, a little powdery, and a little bit musky, this might be right up your alley. The next combination we have is Vere by Maison Kin, and this is a dupe of Tobacco Vanille by Tom Ford. And for our more feminine counterpart, we have Kayali Vanilla. So to start with Vanilla by Kayali, this is a beautiful baker's vanilla. This is sugary sweet, but it is also very warm, and it is not kiddish in any way because it's got this really beautiful brown sugar. It's got a little bit of booziness. This is quite simply a straightforward vanilla. You have that warmth, you have that sweetness from the brown sugar, and you have a little bit of booziness that almost gives it a bourbon type quality. It is very, very effective. So although simple, it is one of the best vanillas out there. That's why it became so popular. And Vere by Maison Kin, or if you can afford the Tom Ford Tobacco Vanille, good for you. This is a holiday vanilla, in my opinion, because you've got this strong note of tobacco that gives it a smooth, earthy, smoky richness, but you have some spiciness, and it smells like holiday spices. You also have the note of dried fruits. So I want to paint you a picture. It's Christmas time, and you have a vanilla candle burning in the background, and you are baking a fruit loaf that is nice and spiced, and your grandpa is smoking pipe tobacco on the porch, so it's very soft and it's just faintly coming in. It's not like dirty smelling. It just gives that beautiful nuance in the air. So this reminds me of Christmas time. It's definitely geared a little bit more towards cold weather because it is quite thick and heavy and decadent of a scent. But if you layer these two together, it smells so good, because sometimes this can be a little bit spicy for my liking, but if I add a little bit of that vanilla, it smells incredible together. You get a little tobacco, a little bit of booziness, a lot of sweetness, and a little bit of smokiness. It's very nice. And the last combination that I'll be covering today is Micallef's Pure Extreme and Le Labo Another 13. Another 13 is our slightly more masculine version because, as I've said in the past, this smells like the pheromones of the hottest guy that you have ever laid your eyes on. This is a musky, clean fragrance while also having a little bit of an earthy element from some moss. It has ambrette that gives it a very, very smooth touch. This is kind of similar to Baccarat Rouge in the way that it's hard to describe because it's very airy. And what I've noticed is a lot of people will apply this, and very soon after, they won't be able to smell it, but other people will smell it on you and you will smell intoxicating. But it definitely has a little bit of a masculinity to it. As I said, it smells like a hot dude. It just smells like a hot dude. But if you want a muskiness, a skin-like scent that is on the more feminine side, we're going to talk about Pure Extreme by Micallef. This similarly is a very musky fragrance, but this has a little bit more of floral nuances to it. So think of clean, freshly washed skin that's a little bit powdery, musky, and a little bit floral. This is significantly more feminine. It's a little bit more dainty, but once again, this is the type of fragrance that you might not be able to smell it on yourself, but everyone else will smell it and they will think that you smell like the most ethereal princess, like the most clean woman that ever existed. And this, highly underrated, more people need to be talking about this. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous scent, and the combination between the two is a unisex heaven. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. If you did, make sure that you're subscribed, and I would love to hear from you guys. Do you have any masculine and feminine fragrance combinations that you wear together that you absolutely love? Or do you ever coordinate fragrances with your partner to make sure that you are both smelling good but somewhat similar? I find that principle very interesting, and I wish in a way that my husband was a little bit more into different fragrances, but once he gets something that he likes, he sticks with it. So I will not be matching with him, but maybe I could talk one of my friends into doing that with me. I had a great time with you guys today, so make sure you tune in next week. I post every Saturday, 10 a.m. PST. And until then, take care of yourselves, my friends.